Good evening. I hope you've been having a wonderful Sunday afternoon. I hope that you were able to join us in person or online for our services this morning. I just continue to remind you that those services are available on our Facebook page. If you missed the service this morning, you can go back and you can watch those again. You can share those with your friends and family members. I would just go ahead and continue to remind you also that we have our VBS that's coming up very soon. It'll be the starting the second full week in June. We have our summer series that's going to be starting on the first Wednesday in June. The title of our summer series this year is Beyond Damascus Road, and it's going to be life lessons from the Apostle Paul. If you remember, Paul was converted on the way to Damascus, led a completely different life after, I shouldn't say completely different because he was persecuting Christians, but he was doing that in a sense of duty to the former or the old covenant, but he was a changed man, so to speak, after that conversion. And then many of his writings come along that are left behind, the book of Romans, and continuing forward. The lessons this year for our summer series are going to be based on those writings of Paul. Each one of our speakers on a Wednesday night will have a given lesson or a given letter from Paul, and they're going to present us with their best lesson or sermon or however they want to do it from each one of Paul's letters. So a lot of rich material there and some leeway to pull out some of the best from some really good speakers that we have coming. I'm looking forward to this summer series, and I just hope that you'll be able to come and join us on Wednesday nights for those summer series. But if not, I hope you also are able to join us at least online and watching those videos. As always, we will make those videos available online. So that's things that we have upcoming, our summer series and our VBS. And please, I would also I plead with you to invite people to come and to hear those speakers and to come to our VBS. Invite people to watch it online. Whatever you can do to spread what we're doing and to make the most of the opportunity that we have here, that would be greatly appreciated, and it'll be a good work for our congregation and no doubt for the Lord's church. So those are the upcoming things. Now, as matters go for our devotional thought for this evening, I wanted to tell you a story about a man. Might be a name that's not that familiar to you. His name is Button Gwinnett. It was on this day, May the 16th of 1777, that British-born Georgia patriot and the signer of the Declaration of Independence, Button Gwinnett, received a bullet wound in a duel with his political rival, Georgia City Whig Lachlan McIntosh. 3 days later, Gwinnett died as a result of gangrene from the wound. McIntosh was also shot in the duel, but the wound that he had was not fatal. Now, I want you to think about this. This man, Button Gwinnett, born in Downharthly, Gloucestershire, England, a prominent man, a signer of the Declaration of the Declaration of Independence. But I want to read a little piece of this story, and I want you to just think about what happened to this man. After signing the Declaration of Independence, Gwinnett returned immediately to Georgia to find City Whig Lachlan McIntosh commanding Georgia's nascent military efforts. Determined to take control of Georgia politics, Gwinnett became Speaker of the Legislature, guided the Georgia Constitution of 1777 into existence, and took over as governor when Archibald Bullock died suddenly in office. But it just this situation continued to eat at him with Lachlan McIntosh, and it led us to this duel that we come to on May the 16th of 1777. He had to be on top. He wanted to be the leader. He wanted to be the man out front. And his pride got in the way of him being a successful man and living perhaps a much longer life than what he did. I want you to think for a moment about what the Bible has to say about pride. What are some verses that come to mind to you? Well, the first thing that pops into my mind is the book of Proverbs, because there are countless verses that talk about pride in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 13 says, "The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate." Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 10, "By insolence comes nothing but strife, but with those who take advice is wisdom." Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 18, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Perhaps that's the one that comes to mind to you most. And no doubt this man's pride led to his destruction, and his haughty spirit led to his fall. Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 23, one's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor. And I go to the New Testament, and this verse doesn't necessarily mention pride, but I think it's a very good verse along the lines of the thinking that we're looking at today. James chapter 4 and verse 1, he says, "What causes quarrels, and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you?" Friends, we can be overcome with the desire that we have to push ourselves to the front, to try to be on the top of the heap. And it's a difficult thing, because the world that we live in today, and especially this country that we live in, everything that we see and hear and everything around us is teaching us to try to get to that point. It's teaching us to try to be the one that's out front. It's teaching us to try to be the one that's climbing the ladder. It's climbing to the top of the mountain. Not only that, but we're passing it along to our children. We're teaching them to push themselves to the best positions on the ball field and on the basketball court and on the soccer field. We're teaching them to push their way to the top of the class, and just like we're being taught to climb the ladder of success and always be looking for a better job, and they're taught to look for nicer cars and bigger homes and all these things like that. That's the kind of thing that we're having to deal with than the world around us. And the Bible's teaching us to be people that are humble and lowly and willing to be submissive, while the world is teaching us to push our way to the top. In Matthew chapter 20 and verse 16, we have one of those paradoxes of the Bible. Jesus says, "So the last will be first, and the first will be last." Friends, if you want to be the first in the kingdom of heaven, if you want to be what God considers to be one of his right-hand men, then you've got to be a person that's willing to humble yourself. What are we supposed to do but love God with all of our heart, soul, and mind, and to love our neighbor as ourselves? And if pride is what's filling up your life, pushing your way to the top, wanting to have the most, the best, wanting to be in the top position, it's going to do nothing but lead to destruction. You think about this man that I mentioned earlier, that this man that was in a position of prominence found himself in a position to be a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and he just goes down as a sad footnote in history, a name that's hardly remembered at all, who died in a duel because he wanted to be the chief, the top, the one out front, the name that everyone knew, and because of his pride and arrogance, found himself being that sad footnote in history. Friends, I just pray that you'll take these thoughts with you as you go into the rest of this week and into the rest of your lives. Don't find yourself being a person that always has to get your way. Don't find yourself being a person that always has to push yourself to the front. Let God be the one that leads your life. Put others in front of yourself. Put your family in front of yourself. Put your loved ones, your neighbors in front of yourself. And certainly, most of all, put God in front of your wants and desires. You'll be happier in the end because of it in this life, and you'll certainly be happier in the next when you find your home with God. I want to thank you once again for tuning in, and I pray that you have a blessed week.